If only the Korean Mafia boss had told the truth about his daughter, the blood on the marble floor would not have been hers. He watched his 12-year-old daughter Soo-Min collapse behind the silk partition during the most dangerous negotiation of his life. Her body seized violently, arms jerking, eyes rolling back. The rival boss across from him noticed the movement. His hand moved toward his gun. The Mafia boss's captains reached for theirs. In 3 seconds, everyone in this room would be dead. Pause for a moment. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, imagine the next one. Subscribe now so you never miss stories about karma, sacrifice, and the choices that change everything. Then a man in catering staff uniform stepped forward. He moved with impossible calm, kneeling beside Soo-Min, checking her pulse, tilting her head correctly, speaking softly in medical terms the boss barely understood. Within 90 seconds, her breathing steadied. The seizure stopped. The Korean Mafia boss stared at this stranger who had just saved his daughter's life and possibly prevented a massacre. His mind asked one question that would haunt him for months. How did a random caterer know exactly what to do? Let us go back 3 months before that terrible night. The world believed the Mafia boss's daughter studied at an elite boarding school in Switzerland. Journalists wrote articles about the privileged life of a crime lord's only child, living in luxury far from her father's darkness. Every word was a lie he carefully constructed. Soo-Min actually lived in the penthouse of his private tower, 3 floors above his office. She never attended school. She never played with other children. She existed in a beautiful prison, monitored by rotating private doctors bound by contracts and fear. The boss told his captains the same thing every time they asked why she never appeared in public. Weakness invites war. If our enemies know she is sick, they will use it against us. That week, another specialist resigned without explanation. The 5th doctor in 8 months. Why did they all leave? The stranger introduced himself with unsettling calmness considering the armed men surrounding him. Daniel Cho. I am a paramedic. I happen to be working the catering event tonight. The Korean Mafia boss offered him money. Enough to buy a house. He refused. He offered him protection. Daniel declined politely. I was just nearby when she needed help, he said, as if stumbling into a mafia negotiation and saving a boss's daughter was ordinary. When Soo-Min woke up an hour later in her room, the first words from her mouth made the boss's blood freeze. Where is Daniel? His head of security looked at him with the same confusion he felt. They had never met before tonight. The mafia boss had made absolutely certain of that. So why did she say his name like she knew him? The boss ordered a complete background investigation. His people were the best. They could find anything about anyone within 48 hours. Daniel Cho's records came back spotless. Medical school with honors. Paramedic certification. Clean employment history. No debt. No scandals. No criminal connections. He volunteered at free clinics on weekends. His taxes were filed perfectly. Too perfectly. Nobody's life was that clean. Everyone had secrets, mistakes, something buried. Meanwhile, Soo-Min asked every single day if Daniel could visit again. She smiled when she said his name. She had not smiled in months. The Korean Mafia boss wanted to say yes because he desperately wanted to see her happy. But something felt wrong. Something he could not identify yet. Against his better judgment, the boss allowed Daniel to return. He reviewed Soo-Min's entire medical history, asked detailed questions, and adjusted her emergency treatment plan. Her seizures reduced from 3 per week to 1. For the first time in months, she laughed freely at dinner. She told her father about a book she was reading. She asked if they could get a cat. She sounded like a normal 12-year-old girl. The mafia boss began to relax. Perhaps he was paranoid. Perhaps Daniel was simply a good person who wanted to help. That night, he reviewed security footage from Daniel's visit. The timestamp showed Daniel entering a restricted corridor on the medical floor. A corridor he was never cleared to access. A corridor containing archived records about Soo-Min's condition that even most of the boss's staff did not know existed. He stayed inside for 7 minutes. What was he looking for? The next morning, the Korean Mafia boss noticed something strange. Soo-Min's medical bracelet had been replaced. The new one looked identical except for one detail. A small symbol was etched into the metal clasp. 3 overlapping circles forming a triangle. His hand started shaking when he recognized it. That symbol belonged to ChemTech Industries, a chemical corporation he had destroyed 15 years ago. He burned their warehouse to the ground to silence a whistleblower who threatened to expose illegal dumping that would have implicated several of his business partners. The fire killed 3 people. The company collapsed within a year. The boss had buried that operation so deeply that only 5 people in the world knew the full truth. Daniel should not be one of them. Why would a random paramedic know that symbol? Why would he put it on his daughter's bracelet? Rumors began spreading through the underworld like poison in water. Whispers in dark rooms. Coded messages between rival families. The white tiger has a weak cub. The Korean boss hides a sick heir. Even kings bleed. A rival triad intercepted one of his shipments at the harbor. They did not steal the cargo. They just left a message spray-painted on the containers in red. We know about the girl. The Mafia boss's captains gathered for an emergency meeting. Their faces showed the same concern he felt. Their enemies were circling. Secrecy was slipping through his fingers like water. But he had told only his most trusted people. The doctors were bound by ironclad contracts. His security team would die before betraying him. So who leaked information about Soo-Min's condition? The boss could not sleep. Questions burned in his mind like acid. He made a decision that terrified him. He broke into sealed hospital archives from the year Soo-Min was born. Records he had ordered destroyed, but that one paranoid administrator had secretly backed up. He found pregnancy medical reports for her mother, his late wife. Elevated toxin levels were recorded during the 2nd trimester. The dates showed exposure occurred the exact same week as the ChemTech warehouse explosion. His wife had been visiting her sister who lived 3 blocks from that warehouse. For 12 years, he never connected these dots. He never looked at the dates this carefully. The doctors told him Soo-Min's condition was genetic, unpredictable, just terrible luck. But what if it was not luck? What if his own order to burn that warehouse created the toxins that poisoned his wife and damaged his unborn daughter? The Korean Mafia boss confronted Daniel in an empty parking garage. His men surrounded him. Guns were not visible, but everyone knew they were ready. "You are not a random medic who happened to be nearby," he said, his voice cold enough to freeze blood. "Who are you really? What do you want?" Daniel looked at him with eyes that held no fear, only something that looked almost like pity. "I am the only person in this city who truly understands what is killing your daughter," he said quietly. "And I am the only one willing to tell you the truth your expensive doctors are too afraid to say." He turned and walked toward the exit. "Stop him," the boss ordered. But Daniel was already gone, disappearing into the shadows faster than his men could react. How did a paramedic move like a trained operative? The next morning, Soo-Min was gone. Her bedroom was empty. No signs of struggle. No broken locks. Security footage showed nothing unusual until the Korean Mafia boss noticed one camera had a 15-second glitch at exactly 3:47 a.m. The same time Daniel's car left the underground parking garage. His daughter had been taken from the most secure building in the city. Taken from under the protection of 20 armed guards. Rage and terror fought inside his chest. If Daniel harmed one hair on her head, he would burn the entire world to find him. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered expecting a ransom demand. Instead, he heard his daughter's voice, calm and sleepy. "Dad, I am okay. Daniel says I am safer here." A secure video link arrived on the boss's encrypted phone 2 hours later. The message was clear. Soo-Min appeared on screen, resting peacefully in a clean medical bed. Monitoring equipment beeped steadily beside her. She looked more comfortable than she had in months. Then Daniel stepped into the frame. "I did not kidnap your daughter," he said, addressing the Korean Mafia boss by reputation alone. "I removed her from doctors who are lying to you about her condition." The boss's fingers crushed the phone case. "Her neurological deterioration is progressing much faster than you have been told," Daniel continued. "The specialists you hired are managing symptoms, not treating the cause. They are keeping her comfortable while she slowly dies." He leaned closer to the camera. "Do you want to know why they are lying? Because telling you the truth would require admitting where the condition came from." Daniel's next words destroyed the Mafia boss's world. "My father's name was Michael Cho. He was a quality control engineer at ChemTech Industries 15 years ago. The Korean boss's blood turned to ice. He discovered illegal chemical dumping that was poisoning the groundwater in 3 neighborhoods. He tried to blow the whistle. Instead, someone burned the warehouse with him inside." Daniel's voice stayed eerily calm as he described watching his father's workplace become an inferno. I was 9 years old, standing across the street with my mother. We watched him die. The boss knew what was coming next. He wanted to stop the video, but he could not move. You killed my father. You gave the order that started the fire. This was revenge. It had to be. He took his daughter to make him suffer. But then Daniel said something that made no sense. I am not here to hurt Soo-Min. I am here because she is my best chance to save everyone. Daniel sent medical files that the boss's doctors had never shown him. Research papers, toxicology reports, lab results showing progressive neurological damage. Soo-Min's illness matches a specific type of toxin-induced neurodegeneration, Daniel explained through the video call. The chemicals dumped by ChemTech were experimental industrial solvents. When burned, they created compounds that cause permanent damage to developing nervous systems. He pulled up a map showing affected areas around the old warehouse. Your wife was exposed during pregnancy. But Soo-Min is not the only victim. I have tracked 17 other children born that year in nearby neighborhoods with similar conditions. The Korean Mafia boss's throat felt tight. There is an experimental treatment, Daniel continued. A research team in Germany developed a protocol that can slow or possibly reverse the damage. But it requires something your doctors cannot provide. What? The boss asked. Public disclosure of the chemical exposure. Full medical transparency. The research team needs documented proof of the toxin source to calibrate the treatment. His empire was built on secrets. Public disclosure would destroy everything. Choose carefully, Daniel said before ending the call. The boss tracked them to a hidden clinic in the industrial district. 20 of his best men surrounded the building. He kicked open the door expecting to find his daughter in danger, ready to kill Daniel with his bare hands. Instead, he found him sitting beside her bed, carefully monitoring vital signs, adjusting medication drips, speaking softly to keep her calm. Soo-Min was awake, reading a book. She looked up and smiled when she saw her father. Hi, Dad. Daniel says I need to stay here for a few more days for proper treatment. Daniel could have hurt her. He could have injected her with poison. He could have done anything to punish the Korean Mafia boss for killing his father. But he was saving her life. For the first time in 15 years, doubt replaced the rage he had carried since that night. What if he was the villain in this story? While the boss stood in that clinic trying to understand Daniel's motives, the rival triad made their move. They hacked into medical communications between his tower and various specialists. They learned about Soo-Min's condition. They discovered she was missing. Within hours, encrypted messages spread across the criminal underworld. The Korean boss's heir is dying. His empire is vulnerable. 3 of his warehouses were hit simultaneously. His drug shipments were stolen. One of his nightclubs was burned down. His phone exploded with calls from panicked captains. Boss, they are coming for us. What do we do? He looked at Soo-Min sleeping peacefully, finally getting real treatment for the first time. War was coming. Weakness had become a weapon pointed directly at his heart. Everything he feared was happening exactly as he predicted. Daniel found the Korean Mafia boss standing outside the clinic at 3 in the morning, staring at the city lights. There is a path forward, he said quietly. But you will not like it. The boss listened as he outlined the plan. Confess involvement in the ChemTech warehouse disaster. Provide compensation to victims' families. Use that documented evidence to access the international research trial for toxin exposure cases. Your empire will take damage, Daniel admitted. Some allies will abandon you. Authorities will investigate. Assets will be frozen. That is not damage, the Mafia boss said bitterly. That is complete destruction. Daniel turned to face him directly. Your daughter has maybe 6 months without this treatment. 3 if we are unlucky. The experimental protocol could give her decades. He walked back toward the clinic entrance, then paused. The choice is yours. Empire or daughter. Power or truth. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. But if you choose your pride over her life, do not pretend you loved her. The rival triad struck first. They leaked partial medical information online through anonymous accounts. Journalists started asking questions. News sites published speculation about anonymous reports of a Mafia boss hiding a terminally ill child. The Korean boss's phone rang constantly. Allies wanted reassurance. Investors demanded meetings. Business partners hesitated on deals that were already agreed upon. One of his captains, a man he had trusted for 8 years, began secret negotiations with the rival. His security intercepted messages showing the captain was offering information in exchange for protection when the empire fell. Betrayal cut deeper than any knife. The empire he had built through blood and terror was fracturing from the inside. Meanwhile, Soo-Min's condition worsened. She had another seizure. Daniel's makeshift clinic was running out of medication. Time was destroying them from every direction. Soo-Min overheard her father arguing with Daniel about the treatment decision. She heard everything. The warehouse fire, the chemicals, the connection between his order 15 years ago and her illness. She confronted him in the small clinic room, her eyes filled with tears. "Did you make me sick, Dad?" He wanted to explain. He wanted to tell her it was complicated, that he did not know, that he never meant for any of this to happen. But the words died in his throat. "Answer me," she whispered. "Did your choices make me sick?" Silence filled the room like poison gas. She started crying. Not the crying of a child throwing a tantrum. The crying of someone whose entire world had just shattered. "You spent 12 years hiding me because you were ashamed," she said through tears. "Not to protect me, to protect yourself." Every word was true. Every word was a knife in his chest. The rival found the clinic's location 3 days later. They came with 15 men, all armed, all ready to kill. Gunfire shattered the windows. Daniel pushed Soo-Min to the floor behind a reinforced medical cabinet. The Korean Mafia boss's men fired back from defensive positions. He fought alongside Daniel, two fathers protecting a child, forgetting for those terrible minutes that they were supposed to be enemies. A gunman aimed directly at Soo-Min's hiding spot. Daniel threw himself in front of her, taking a bullet in his shoulder that would have hit her chest. He collapsed, bleeding, but still covering her body with his own. In that moment, the boss understood the truth completely. Daniel did not come here for revenge. He came here because saving Soo-Min meant saving all the children affected by his terrible decision. Revenge would have been letting her die. Instead, he took a bullet meant for her. His men finally drove off the attackers. Daniel survived, but the message was clear. They were running out of time. The doctors the Korean Mafia boss flew in from 3 different countries all confirmed the same devastating news. Without the experimental treatment, she has months at best, possibly weeks if the seizures continue escalating. The German research team was willing to accept her into the trial, but their legal department required full documentation of the chemical exposure source. "We cannot proceed without transparency about the toxins," the lead researcher explained over video call. "If we calibrate the treatment incorrectly, we could accelerate the damage instead of reversing it." The boss looked at Soo-Min sleeping in the hospital bed, her small body connected to machines that kept her stable. Empire or daughter? Power or truth? The choice should have been obvious from the beginning. Why had it taken him so long to see it? The Korean Mafia boss gathered his captains in the private tower for an emergency meeting. 20 men who had built this empire with him sat around the table. "I am suspending all major operations for the next 6 months," he announced. "Drug shipments, weapons deals, protection rackets. Everything goes cold." The room erupted in protests. "Boss, we will lose everything. Our enemies will take our territory. This is insanity." One captain, the same man who had been secretly negotiating with rivals, stood up and challenged him directly. "You are choosing one sick girl over all of us. That makes you weak." The Mafia boss walked around the table until he stood directly in front of him. "That sick girl is my daughter," he said quietly. "And I am choosing to finally be her father instead of just a boss." He could see the shift in the room. Some men nodded slightly. Others looked away. Power was slipping. The empire was crumbling. And for the first time in his life, he did not care. The Korean Mafia boss signed the documents Daniel prepared. Confession of responsibility for the ChemTech warehouse fire. Admission that he ordered the building burned despite knowing people were inside. List of all chemicals stored there. Compensation fund transfers were initiated immediately. $10 million divided among families of the 3 people who died, plus medical funds for affected children. He sent everything to authorities, to the German research team, to news organizations. Within 2 hours, his bank accounts began freezing. Police issued warrants. Former allies released statements distancing themselves from him. His lawyer called in a panic. "Do you understand what you just did? You confessed to multiple felonies. You will go to prison." "I know," he said calmly. "Then why?" He looked through the window at Soo-Min being prepared for transport to Germany. Because some things matter more than freedom. He had crossed a line he could never uncross. The empire was finished, but his daughter had a chance to live. Daniel visited the boss the night before Soo-Min left for treatment. His shoulder was still bandaged from taking the bullet meant for her. "There is something you should know," he said. "Soo-Min is not the only child I have been tracking." He showed him files on 17 other cases. Children born in neighborhoods near the warehouse. All showing similar neurological conditions. All getting worse. "I have spent 6 years documenting these cases," Daniel explained. "Trying to find someone with enough resources to fund proper research. Most families are poor. They cannot afford experimental treatments." He looked at the Korean Mafia boss with an expression he could not quite read. "You are a criminal. You killed my father. You caused this entire disaster." He paused. "But you are also the only person with enough power and money to save all of these children. Not just Soo-Min. All of them." The boss finally understood why he came. Why he saved her instead of letting her die. "You used my daughter to get to me," he said. "I used your love for your daughter to reach your conscience," Daniel corrected. "There is a difference." The rival triad made their final move. They kidnapped 3 of the affected children from poor families, using them as hostages. Their demand was simple. Retract the confession. Bury the evidence again. Return to silence. The Korean Mafia boss's captains assumed he would comply. Protecting the empire was always the priority. Instead, he loaded every weapon he owned, gathered the 12 men still loyal to him, and stormed the rival's compound. The fight was brutal. They were outnumbered 3-1. But rage gave him strength that logic never could. He defeated the rival leader in personal combat. Then he did something that shocked everyone. He called the police himself. He handed over the rival leader, his men, and complete evidence of every crime, including his own involvement. His captains stared at him like he had lost his mind. "Boss, you just gave them everything. You destroyed yourself." "No," he said, looking at the rescued children being reunited with their parents. "I finally chose accountability over dominance." For the first time in his life, he understood what honor actually meant. 6 months later, the Korean Mafia boss sat in a maximum security prison watching a televised charity event on the common room television. The foundation was called ChemTech Victims Recovery Fund. The event was raising money for ongoing treatment and research. Soo-Min appeared on stage. Her hair had grown back after the initial treatment. Her smile was genuine. The German protocol was working. She was getting stronger every week. She spoke about the 17 children receiving treatment, about the research helping dozens more cases worldwide, about turning tragedy into hope. Daniel stood beside her as medical director. He dedicated his life to fixing what the boss broke. His lawyer said he would serve 12 years minimum. No parole, no early release. He watched his daughter laugh at something Daniel whispered to her. He watched her wave to the crowd with confidence he never saw before. If only he had told the truth sooner, fewer children would have suffered. If only he had chosen accountability from the beginning, his daughter would not have spent 12 years hidden like a shameful secret. But he finally understood something that took him 43 years to learn. An empire built on silence destroys everything it touches. A legacy built on truth creates something that lasts beyond prison walls, beyond power, beyond death itself. He destroyed his empire to save his daughter. And he would make the same choice every single time. What would you choose, power or the person you love most? If questions like this make you think, subscribe to the channel for more stories that challenge everything you believe about loyalty, family, and redemption. See you in the next story.